I call the honourable member for Swan.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. As we all know, it has been a summer of natural disasters for Australia, a summer of floods, fires and storms. And I'm sure the thoughts of all Australians who are not affected by these disasters do go out to the families of those that lost their lives, their livelihoods and their homes through the disasters, whether it be by flood, fire or storm. I think all Australians in general have been impressed with the resolve and the character that the people affected by these disasters have displayed during this most difficult time. Mr Deputy Speaker, Western Australia has not been untouched by these natural disasters. On the weekend of the 5th to the 7th of February, fires destroyed at least 72 homes and damaged 32 in Perth's eastern region. It is thanks to the evacuation plans and the speedy work of our firefighters, police force and emergency services that there were no lives lost in these fires. These communities have been badly shaken, but I'm sure they will bounce back. In the meantime, we need to provide them with as much support as we can. Mr Deputy Speaker, my electorate of Swan did not escape unscathed from this weekend of fire damage in WA. During the weekend, a fire started in Cannington and spread across the wetlands, burning through much of the Canning River Regional Park. I visited the wetlands to inspect the damage, and it is extensive, particularly on the Ferndale side. I have a map that was provided to me by Russell Gorton from the Wilson Wetlands Action Group, which shows the affected areas. I'd like to put on record my sympathy for all the volunteers at the park who have witnessed the burnout of large areas which they have spent years rehabilitating. The area patrolled by the Canning River Regional Park volunteers has been severely affected. The area in Ferndale near Wilcox Street Bridge, where the Leader of the Opposition, Tony Abbott, and I last year helped some Green Army volunteers clear weeds, was within that fire zone. In the aftermath of the fires, I held a meeting with one of the local environmental groups and we discussed the way forward. The most immediate problem will be controlling the weeds that will try and recolonise the bare ground where native vegetation had been planted. This is going to take some vast effort as the affected area is so large. The West Australian reported just after the event that the police suspected that arson was the cause of this particular blaze. There has been plenty of speculation in the community that arson was the cause. Arson is one of the worst crimes imaginable. Plenty of residents live right on the edge of the wetlands and areas close to the edge of the fires. There were reports some people were forced to evacuate their houses. Fortunately, in this instance, the fire was well contained within the park, thanks largely to the efforts of the firefighters. However, the fact that someone could have deliberately started a fire that might have threatened homes and lives is inexcusable. Mr Deputy Speaker, personally I believe that arsonists should be charged with attempted murder or murder. This, of course, wasn't the first fire of the season, and local groups said there have been at least 4 other spot fires recently. It is not known whether or not these were deliberately started, but we must be vigilant about the build-up of dead grass and weeds in the park area. When I walk around the wetlands with environmental volunteers, they frequently point out areas of dry tall grass and dead material which needs to be cleared. They are very good at reporting these problems to the rangers, however, it is impossible for them to cover the whole park. Many Limwood residents are concerned about a build-up of fire fuel in the Bannister Creek area. The Bannister Creek catchment, which feeds into the Canning River wetlands, passes within 5 to 10 metres of some Limwood houses. After the prolonged hot weather in Perth, the floor of the bush contains a fairly thick covering of dry leaves and branches. Local residents are calling for these areas to be cleared. These recent fires that swept through the park show that the area is like a tinderbox at the moment. We certainly must do everything we can to protect these houses and lives. In conclusion, Mr Deputy Speaker, I'd like once again to extend my sympathy to the victims of the natural disasters across Australia this summer. I will be working with the people of my electorate and volunteer groups to make every effort that the fire-affected areas recover, and that we will make sure that we minimise the danger of build-up fire fuel in the parkland area around the residential suburbs of my electorate of Swan. Mr Deputy Speaker, I seek leave to table the map showing the extent of the fire damage in my electorate of Swan.
Leave granted. There being no objection.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker.